Hi guys, and welcome to another video. So I'm going to try something new with the channel. We're going to kick off a new kind of series thing here. Hopefully it will do alright. As you know, we've been doing these Guild Wars 2 mechanic focused videos where we talk about misconceptions about the game and all the worries that people have because of the new scary innovations that ArenaNet are putting into Guild Wars 2. Well, those videos are doing really well, but I kind of have a bit of a problem with them, and that's really the whole point of those videos. Is they're supposed to be quite short, they're supposed to be quite concise, and I like that about them. It's good that they're short, and it's good that I'm managing to get them so short. But the thing is, when I start making those, this is what I do. I start off, I open up Word, I write down loads of key points that I think might be interesting about the topic. I read about the topic, I come back, I make some more points, and then I distill it all down and try and fit it into 6 minutes. And 99% of the stuff that I think about and all the key points that I have never make it into the end product. They're just not there at all. It's always a little bit depressing when later on I read the comments. You know, every time one is, I don't generally reply to the comments on those videos because there's so many, but as they do come in, I do read them, and most of the time people might say, oh yeah, okay, that's fine, I see what you're saying, but look, what about this, what about this? And most of the time it's stuff that I've thought about, and it's so kind of annoying that I can't get it across in the video. So I thought we'd do this kind of thing where basically after I do one of those videos, one of those mechanic-based videos, later on in the week, I'll read through the comments and do another one, a longer one. This will be like 20 minutes, maybe a bit longer, where I address some of the things that you guys come out with, which lets us talk about it in a little bit more detail and kind of give my own thoughts, because a lot of the time I am agreeing with you guys when you say, oh yeah, this is shit because of this reason or this reason. So we'll see how it goes. In the background, the footage, I've got to be honest with you guys, I'm so bored of Guild Wars 2 trailer footage already. We've not even done many of those videos, but I'm so bored of them already. We've not got enough Guild Wars 2 footage. So for these videos, it's either going to be me playing Guild Wars 1, in this case that's me playing as Sol D'Alessio in the bonus mission pack. It will either be something like that, or if I can get permission from someone, I'll get some actual Guild Wars 2 demo gameplay going up there. I know that there's some really high quality good stuff on YouTube. Thing is, I don't really have permission to use it from anyone. War Tower's always been really nice to me. Maybe they will, but I'll look at that later. Anyway, that's Sol D'Alessio there in the background for this video. And yeah, let's kick it off. Before I go into individual comments, what I've done is I've just picked out some. I've picked out the earlier ones because a lot of people kind of say the same thing and sort of group them together. But one thing that loads of people did mention was the fact that obviously there's PvP and world versus world in the game. Yeah, I do know. Yeah, well, they are two huge, massive things in the game. I completely agree. I know the video was kind of about what's going to keep people playing the game, but I did want to make it specifically the PvE game. PvP and world versus world are going to be massive. They're going to keep people playing. Hopefully the game will achieve some sort of e-sport potential as well, which will really help out with PvP. But they do look like really interesting, good gameplay mechanics, and I am aware they're there and they'll keep people playing. The thing is, I wanted the video to be just about the PvE experience, because there's been a lot of people recently saying, oh, I can't stand PvP, I really don't like it, it's horrible, I only have a PvE, what's Guild Wars 2 got to offer me? Well, and they kind of have all these questions about that kind of stuff. So that's what I wanted the video to be about. And, you know, another massive thing actually that a couple of you mentioned that is PvE related, I suppose, is achievements. And yeah, achievements are massive. Of course, they'll keep people playing the game. I mean, I never pointed out, maybe I should have, but I really do think achievements will be great. I don't know whether they're going to be specifically tied to the dungeons. I think it would be nice. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's going to be an achievement that's like, oh, well done, you've completed your personal story. I'm sure there'll be something like that. But will there be one that says, oh, you've completed all of the dungeons? Probably. But then again, that kind of achievement I'm not sure is the kind of thing that will keep people playing the game for a really long time, because you just finish the dungeons once and then you're done, right? You know, it's not exactly something that's going to keep people going. So they might add like a grindy title where you just keep doing dungeons and over and over and over again, like some of the grindy titles in Guild Wars 1. I do think that there will be grindy achievements, definitely. I mean, there were a lot in Guild Wars 1 too. I mean, Guild Wars 1 is a perfect example, really, to show the power of achievements. Like, in that game, obviously, we had titles. Guild Wars 1 had no typical MMO raiding or anything like that. It didn't have a gear treadmill. It had none of that stuff. And some people will tell you, oh, look, Guild Wars 1 dead. And I will admit, yeah, Guild Wars 1, there are people, less and less people are playing it as time goes on. But it's nowhere near dead. There are loads of people playing that game, and not just because of the Guild Wars 2 calculator. I've said it before, I'll say it time and time again. The only reason Guild Wars 1 looks a little bit more dead is because it's a heavily instanced world, and because the game's old now with little new content coming out, so people have all been funneled into certain areas. You go to the right areas, you will see out in those towns that there are loads of people there. The game feels barren, it feels empty, I'll give you that, but there's actually still quite a lot of us playing. And we're only playing for the titles. Like, that's what people are doing. They're doing it for the whole of Monuments rewards too. But before that even came out, like the calculator, you had loads of players like me. Sure, if I wasn't Let's Play in the game, I don't know whether I'd still be there right now, but certainly for a long time, you know, we had Eye of the North. There was a good 3-year, 4-year maybe, period there where we had no idea what rewards were going to be in Guild Wars 2 or how any of it measured up. We just knew we could dedicate things to our Hall of Monument, and the only thing that kept us playing were titles. Stupid little bits of text that appeared under our names, and that was it. But we were more than happy to do that. Those titles were so grindy, the most grindy thing I think I've ever done in any game ever. I mean, seriously now, is a Guild Wars 1 title, the Treasure Hunter title. Just ridiculously grindy, and I did it all because I knew that not that many people would have it, and I think that's the key thing here. If it's cosmetic, they can make it grindy as hell, and that will keep people playing for a very long time. Like I say, I'm not sure how much achievements ties into dungeons, but that is certainly going to be a big thing that keeps people playing PvE, I guarantee it. There's so many people still playing Guild Wars 1 just for those, and there will be with Guild Wars 2, even when that's had a 4-year period with no new content coming out, which, let's face it, probably isn't going to happen considering there's going to be expansions. Though, I say that, if they take the same kind of stance with their expansions as they did developing the core game and spending years and years trying to innovate everywhere with it, then we might be having some problems there. But anyway, so I did want to mention those PvP, World vs. World, and achievements. They are other things, but they weren't necessarily dungeon related. The first main comment that I wanted to pick out, there were about 3 actually that I've got here, and they're about the token system. So the first one reads that the only thing I'm worried about is the unique stuff. Even though you get the rarest, coolest stuff from very hard dungeons, people will master them and farm them. After a year or less, the hardcore players will, if they choose, have the hardest dungeon stuff, which of course makes them not so unique anymore. In other games, there was a low % chance to get the item to still keep them unique because they were hard to find, but in Guild Wars 2, you're guaranteed to get them. Which is a valid concern, I suppose. I'm not sure I agree 100% that just because they were based on percentages, the other rare items in other MMOs, just because they were based on percentages, that stopped lots of people getting them. At the end of the day, giving something a 1% drop rate or requiring 100 tokens to get, it's the exact same chance. It's basically the same amount of effort that people are going to have to put into, on average, to get those unique items. But then that is assuming, obviously, that the token system will conform to the same kind of stats that most percentage-based systems do, and I really don't think they're going to do that, because the nice thing about percentage-based systems is that you can kind of hide it. You can say, alright, it's a 5% chance to drop. People don't quite realise how many runs that really is to get. But in Guild Wars 2, what they're going to have to do is they're going to flat out say to characters, this is how many runs of this dungeon you're going to have to do to be able to get this item. Unless they obscure it somehow by giving you loads of tokens for a reward of a dungeon, more if you do certain things, less if you do certain. But even then, it's much harder to obscure it, and people will much easier be able to see how low their chance or how much effort they're going to have to put in to get it. At least with percentages, people can fool themselves into thinking they're going to get lucky, and they might get lucky, or they just don't even think about it, because you never really see the drop rate of a boss, do you, unless you go onto the wiki or something. So I'm not sure I 100% agree there, but I do have concerns about the tokens, definitely. The next comment on the same topic was, the only problem I have with the token system is that eventually people will find the easiest dungeon and the quickest route to complete, and then they'll just grind that one dungeon. So in trying to keep all the dungeons fresh, the player base will eventually demote all other dungeons based on which offers the most reward for the amount of time and effort. That's the only downside, initially anyway. Once people get bored, I'm sure they'll wander off into the rest of the content. And the last comment's really similar. I think it sums up a bit better. It's, I get your point, but what if most people do just the one dungeon that gives the most tokens for invested time, and you'll have problems to find groups for anything else? Which is honestly something I'm worried about. It really is. I mentioned in the video, I said, in Guild Wars 2 there are essentially 32 different dungeons, and because they're all viable, because of the scaling, that means essentially you're going to be playing more dungeons than you might in other MMOs. That's not strictly true. It really isn't, because what people will do, as far as we can see, we've not heard of there being any caveats to this, people will do this. They will find the fastest single route for the dungeon, and they'll just keep going straight through that over and over and over again. So it really will only be 8 dungeons. And then if you consider the possibility that the level 30 dungeon, the earlier dungeons, even though they're supposed to be just as hard, well, we've heard that they're supposed to be just as hard. I'm going to assume here that some dungeons are going to be harder than others, in which case very quickly those easier ones people won't want to do anymore. So now you're not looking at 8, you're looking at potentially even less, just 4 dungeons. So ArenaNet are going to have to find some way, I think, of encouraging people to do lots of different versions rather than the same one. But it's really not going to be something very easy to fix, because they've been doing so much in the game trying to encourage people to group up. They've been trying to make it easy for people. One of the main reasons they are not doing raids, large-scale raids, they're doing 5-mans, is because of that. They want it to be easier to party up. They're trying to get rid of class roles so that anyone can join together, and as long as they're good enough, they'll get through the content. And that's awesome. They're doing loads for this. They're doing the scaling. That's a massive aspect of the scaling, which I didn't mention before, that it's to help to facilitate people playing together. You know, it's a common story. Oh, I leveled faster than my friends, and now we can't play together. That's not a problem with the scaling. They're doing all of this to keep people playing together. But then you have this idea of the different versions of the dungeons. If they're going to force people or encourage people to not do a certain one of those, it's going to cause problems when you're grouping up. For example, if they add just a really rudimentary system where they say, right, okay, you completed this version of the explorable mode, now you can't do it anymore. Okay, now you've got to do a different version before you can go back to that. If they do that, now you've got people waiting around in the outpost, discriminating against who can do what version of the dungeon at what time. You've split everybody into 3 camps. It's just a it will be a massive pain in everyone's arse, and it just goes against what they're trying to do. So I'm sure they won't block a version of the dungeon like that. But how else could they do it? Well, I've heard the idea quite a lot, and this is an idea I kind of like, I guess, that they could encourage more tokens for versions of the dungeons that you haven't done for a while. Or you could look at it the other way, they offer you less tokens for completing the same version over and over and over again, which I suppose works, but you're still going to be splitting people into 3 camps. Someone's going to prefer to do the different version of the dungeon, especially if it just keeps going up. Let's say we keep doing the same version of the dungeon over and over, and rewards on the other one just grows massive. People are going to get pissed off and discriminate. I mean, it won't be so bad because you do still have the option of going down the lesser one, but I just don't think it's something that ArenaNet are going to want to do. I think that they'll see that it splits people up like that and say, no, we're not going to do it. And it's a decision they have to make. Do they force players to go through different versions of the dungeons, or do they just let them run the same one over and over and over again? Because another point to raise there is, if players want to just keep doing the same version of the dungeon over and over, even if it is grindy, even if it is repetitive, if they want to do that anyway, should ArenaNet really be adding systems to flat out prevent them? I certainly don't think they should be encouraging the behaviour, and before the game launches they should definitely try and stop people doing it. But they're going to have to find a solution somehow, and for the life of me, I can't think of one. I really can't. I'm not sure how they're going to stop that. MMO players are min-maxers by default, in my opinion. That's what people do. They adopt a standard and they force everybody to stick to it when it comes to doing things like runs. So I don't know how they're going to stop it, but that is a concern of mine as well, and you know, I'm glad you guys see it too. The last comment for this video, I actually had a few more, but we've already been rambling for long enough, as I do. The last comment is to do with scaling, which was quite a big part of that video. So with scaling, Jinath says, not that I'm completely opposed to the idea of level scaling back. I simply wonder, why is the level cap so high? In Guild Wars 1, the level cap is 20 and everything after that is basically balanced and completely fun while still being challenging. I'm very skeptical of Guild Wars 2 because it seems so different from Guild Wars 1. Yeah, this is something that a lot of people are concerned about. It's something that I was really concerned about when ArenaNet first announced this system. It's the worry that there's no point in leveling up when you've introduced a scaling system like this. And if you guys played Oblivion, which I'm sure a lot of you probably have, Oblivion had this problem like mad. I really enjoyed Oblivion, I played it a lot, but as soon as I heard that Oscuro's Oblivion overhaul existed, I installed that mod straight away. I couldn't stand the level scaling that was in Oblivion. And when ArenaNet first came out about their sidekicking mechanic, I did not like it at all. And to an extent, I still don't like it, but I think that they've limited certain aspects of it to world versus world. So the main difference, I think, between Guild Wars 2 and Oblivion, for example, is that in Oblivion, the scaling worked both ways. Okay, it really did make leveling pointless, because not only did everything scale up to your power so that all content would remain viable, which is what Guild Wars 2 is doing, in Oblivion they also had the problem that when you started the world, nothing was stronger than you, ever. It really was constantly all scaled to your power. You never had that feeling of being in a big dangerous world where things could attack you if you went too far away. Guild Wars 2 still does have that, so you do still have an incentive for leveling up. So a lot of people saying, oh, why the hell would I want to level at all? Well, you do still have that incentive. You want to explore. You'll find a part of your personal story where there's some super strong boss somewhere, if that's all you've been focusing on, and you'll be like, oh shit, this is actually really hard, and then you'll have to go away and level up just like you would in any other RPG. But what's even cooler about Guild Wars 2 is that obviously you'll level up, but if you continue to do it too far, the boss will still be challenging. That's a main problem I've always had with a lot of RPGs I play, where you go off and grind for a while, and when you come back you realise, oh, I've grinded too much, and now this boss is trivial, and it was boring, and I feel like I've missed out because this wasn't an engaging encounter for me, and look, I've just completely destroyed this guy. Well, it's kind of a fail-safe against that, which is really cool. So I do think that the scaling down is a pretty good system. I'm worried about scaling up, which is something that they've said. I think they originally announced it would happen all over the world. This would be all over the PvE world, but now I think it is limited to just world versus world, which is cool. World versus world I don't mind so much because it helps to maintain a sort of balance. I mean, it is generally a PvP area. They've said though that obviously world versus world is supposed to be chaotic. It's supposed to have terribly imbalanced fights where you've got 100 people against just 2 stuck in a keep or something, and that's cool. That chaos, that's what world versus world thrives on, so why not let people scale up in world versus world? It's something I'm a little bit skeptical about, but it doesn't bother me so much, probably because I'm not planning on playing world versus world that much, really. I don't know, maybe when I get into the game type I'll enjoy it a lot more. But back to the actual question with the scaling, why is the level cap so high? I honestly just think because you won't be scaling up in the PvE environment. We play RPGs, MMO RPGs. A big thing for RPGs, for me at least, a massive thing for me in RPGs is the character progression. Getting stronger, going to new areas and overcoming the challenges. Even though it might not be as it could be in other games like FPSs where you're overcoming these challenges by gaining skill, in RPGs, that progression is tangible stats going up. And I like the feeling. I like dinging and then putting those points in the attributes and watching your health go up and stuff. I really enjoy that. The level cap's so high just because it extends that experience. And the longer you do make the leveling process, even though it does inevitably have to come to an end. This is actually something I remember ArenaNet were looking into. If you look at some of the first things they ever announced about Guild Wars 2, they originally said that the game wasn't going to have a level cap. Like, you'd have a power threshold, sure, but there wouldn't be a level cap in that once you'd hit 80, for instance, you just go to 81 and then 82, and your level would be kind of an indicator of how long you'd been playing the game. Obviously that's flawed though, because people farming, and let's face it, farming is going to exist in the game. People are going to be farming somehow. It's going to be skewed in the favour of people who do the certain activities over others. So it would have been flawed anyway, but still, I think you can see that ArenaNet do appreciate that the progression is a really fun part of RPGs. I agree with the level cap going up. I still see a lot of hardcore kind of Guild Wars 1 fans who sit around and say, oh, the level 20 was really good. I liked how everything was a flat plateau. And I like what they were trying there in Guild Wars 1, having the flat level cap. I actually think that was their original attempt at making grouping up easier. I really do. Their concept was, hey, everybody's going to be level 20, there's not going to be any discrimination over level. The thing is, with Guild Wars 1, there were so many other problems with builds being so important and choosing to have 8-man teams everywhere, and then eventually adding heroes that completely undermined the whole benefit of having a level 20 cap. In the end, I think it probably wasn't worth it. I look at once I got to level 20, well, not me personally, because I ended up, as you probably know if you watch my channel, I ended up doing a lot of the quests, but still, aside from people like me who are really into the lore, a lot of players, as soon as they hit 20, they didn't care about the side quests anymore. They just kind of made a straight beeline through the main story, and probably did miss out on a lot of fun content and a lot of interesting stuff, just because now that their progression was finished so early, they felt like there was no reason to do anything else. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear that most of the Guild Wars 1 players, what is it, 7 million people picked up the game in the end. I bet that most of the people that stopped, it was shortly after they got to level 20 in factions on Nightfall. I did genuinely enjoy Prophecies, how you slowly got more skills as you went through and how you kept leveling up for a very, very long time. It's something that people are used to in MMOs as well. I think that it's become so ingrained in people now. You've got so many MMOs that the entire goal is about leveling up. There's a kind of an underlying feeling that, oh, I'm finished. Oh, what am I working towards now? Especially considering Guild Wars 1, where really, what were you working towards once you'd completed the game? It's what I was talking about earlier, titles, that was it. And if you weren't invested enough in your character, if you weren't invested enough in the friends you'd made while you're in the game on your way to finishing, you probably weren't going to care about the titles either, in my general opinion. When people you got to stay in the game for a certain period of time before you care about the titles. And if the leveling process is so short that a lot of people don't reach that amount of time to become invested, then they're probably going to leave. So that's why I think that the level cap's now 80. That's not exactly to do with scaling, and I think that the scaling does work just fine. I did raise those issues in the video, and a few of you did reply with ideas of how those could be balanced. I do think that they can be balanced, the backwards scaling, giving people incentives to go back to earlier levels areas. Somebody made a nice comment about karma. I definitely do think it is possible to balance. I just think it's going to be difficult for them to balance, and I think it'll be interesting to see whether the scaling really pulls off. But yeah, there you go, guys. This is the first of these little videos. I hope you enjoyed it. There will be another one, of course, after the next mechanic related video on the weekend. I'm pretty sure that the next mechanic related video is going to be either about identity through your skill bar, about customizing your skills. A lot of people are really worried about that there's not going to be enough customization in the game. Or it will be a look at the Trinity. I know I've already done one quite similar to that, but that was a healer video. I'm not really happy with that video. I don't agree with what I said in it anymore. So I'll be doing one of those eventually. And again, if you guys have got more ideas for those kinds of videos, they're all going into a list of mine, so they probably will be made eventually. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.
The unseen ones took Saul with them to ensure his silence. He was never seen alive again, but the survivors spread the legend. And Saul d'Alessio would always be remembered as a champion of Kryta.